The federal government has commenced discussion with organized labor to try to forestall a looming industrial action by workers over alleged poor implementation of the fuel subsidy removal palliative, including payment of 35,000 naira wage awards. Minister for State for Labor and Employment, Honorable O. Nkiru, who confirmed the talk, said negotiations on the new minimum wage had also commenced. She stated that the negotiations will be gradual, adding that they would seek to address all concerns by the workers. The federal government, however, urged the NLC and TUC not to carry out their threat of an industrial action, promising to resume the payment of the wage award to workers this week. Secretary to Government of the Federation, Senator George Okume, also said the federal government was desirous of a minimum wage that was fair, sustainable, and also looking forward to dealing with the issues of workers. Speaking on brewing disputes with the federal government over non-implementation of the agreement on wage awards and modalities for new minimum wage, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, said organized labor was not satisfied with the manner government was proceeding with the talks on new minimum wage and expressed fear over possible stalemates in the talks. He said Labour believed that any governor or ex-governor that could not pay their workers the 30,000 naira minimum wage had no business being on the new minimum wage committee. Ajaero also spoke on the effect of the country's galloping inflation on the wages of Nigerian workers, saying no matter what amount you pay now in the present time economy, in the next 5 years, it cannot even buy you a bag of rice. But with the federal government and Labour going back and forth on this, the big question or the big story for today is what now needs to be done to give Nigerians the living wage for workers in the country. With the present situation of things, well, these and more as it concerns the present situation of things, the Nigerian workers, and the issue of them navigating through the hard time is what this edition of the big story is all about. And we're talking about suffering in Nigeria, living wage for workers. And that's what we're having as a major discourse today on the big story. We're looking at the hardship in the country, and not just only that, but also looking at the living wage for workers as being stated by many. Well, that's what we're having as a major discourse today on the big story. We're looking at that very pure fact from the hardship that presently is being experienced in the country, and what should be the living wage for workers, especially looking at that allegation, or rather talk being debunked now by no other but the president of the NLC, Joe Ajaero, in saying that, well, should it be 1 million naira? Well, he has come to debunk that claim, but let's stick with it. But to help us talk about this is no other person but our guest, and we're talking about Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume. He's the present ASU chairman of FUPRI right here in Delta State. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir. Hello. Well, Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume, can you hear me now? Hello? Okay, we'll try and see how we can truly resolve things with him, and when we do, I will have him on board, helping us to look at these issues that's been presented, and we're talking about the present hardship and what should be the living wage for workers, looking at the galloping inflation that seems to be spiraling out of control. Many will say, would the present minimum wage be that should take them to the needed land, or should a different approach be taken to see how they can really address the issues of wage for workers? But that's what we're still looking at. Hello, Engineer Dr. Wilfred.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. Nice having you on board now. And well, I'll just, knowing how busy you are and how really important this discussion is, I want us to just quickly go into it. We're talking about the present hardship and what should be the living wage for workers as being stated by many. But before we look at the living wage and the present hardship in the land, I want us to first look at the impending strike action with the 14 days ultimatum given by the NLC and TUC that will definitely elapse at the end of this weekend. But let's look at this. Now, we know the agreement was reached with Labour by the federal government in September for the 35 naira wage award, but it has not been paid. And as it stands up to today, that have not been paid. Mining the federal government has come out to promise that they will pay. Are you expectant that the federal government will definitely pay, or do you feel that strike action is imminent, adding to the present problem we have? What's your view on it?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mike. It's quite unfortunate that we'll still be discussing strike. I love the fact that you started the conversation by reminding us that there was an agreement reached by the federal government and organized labor.
Yes.
Especially with regards to the wage award and other issues.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is this: if we have government or the ruling class that are sincere, I don't think it should have been an issue that we'll be discussing today. Because now you're still looking at the current economic action, floating of the naira and the corresponding effect.
Yes.
And the wage award is yet to be implemented. And I think the strike will be imminent. Because the truth is this: how you avert strike is when parties meet their own end of the bargain.
Agreement.
And the government have not shown any effort towards that at all, and without any concise reason to explain that. So strike could be the last option from organized labor, which will have its own toll on our economy again that is presently fragile. That's how unfortunate it is. And that's why for some of us, the idea of floating naira, yes, it's good on paper, but for you to float the naira, you must be a productive nation. Because floating of your currency is only for producing nations. It's to encourage exports. And not in our own case. We are not a producing nation. What are we exporting? Apart from the oil, that presently now we cannot get the benefit from our crude oil sales because we are taking loans. A lot of loans that don't the benefit that's supposed to come from the sales of crude oil is being used to pay for the loan.
Okay, now, Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okolugme, I'll plead with you to hold on. We'll come to the policies that you feel are out of place to deal with the problem. But let's still remain with the issue of the strike action. Now, the federal government has come to plead. They pleaded yesterday with organized labor to reason it out. And what they are saying, would it not be right? They said they cannot pay the wage award all in once. Will it not also be considerate for the labor union, organized labor, to take it in batches, like the federal government would say, excuse me, start implementing that for grade level 1 to 10, and maybe in the coming months, 10 to 17, knowing that the present economic hardship is in the country, and we do know the federal government is going through a lot of cash crunch. So would it not be a bit understanding if labor subpedal a bit and let this money come in trenches?
Okay, let me ask you a big question now. We have a situation where your minimum wage is 30,000 naira. How much is the cost of the price of bag of spend? How much is the price of rice?
77,000.
Minimum wage. A worker in Nigeria currently cannot use the whole of his monthly salary to buy a bag of rice. And government is saying you want to stagger the wage award, which is not going enough to cushion the effect. How much is the cost of transportation for that worker to get to work? That's another side to it. Now the government themselves, those in position of authority, have they been able to stagger their own benefits, looking at the economic situation? Have they been able to reduce costs of governance, running government, stagger it, looking at the economic inflation? Have they reduced the number of their essays that have SSAs? Each essay has its own SSA, looking at the economic situation. Have they been able to reduce the number of their fleet? Have they reduced the number of their fleet, their entourage, looking at the economic implication? One person will be traveling with an SUV, and you see 10 SUV in the same route with persons that have no business and using taxpayers' money for same thing. Then you are asking organized labor, you are saying they should stagger 35,000 naira that's not good enough to buy a bag of rice, and there's no way enough to take that same worker to his workplace. I think coming from government, that's the highest insult to organized labor. So who say you cannot pay the wage award of 35,000 across board, you want to stagger it, that's the highest insult from government. That's just what I feel. Because this thing is beyond organized labor. You see, it has a ripple effect on all the traders.
Yeah.
Because you now see workers not having what it takes to purchase food items.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, somebody told me that to get a good cow now is about 1 million naira for cow. Where are we going to as a nation that the government is saying that we want to stagger what is not even enough? What is not even enough? I don't think that's something that should be debatable. I think whoever makes such pronouncement should be apologizing to the populace for even proposing staggering it.
Okay, well,
so when it was implemented up in now, they've only paid 2 months to some persons, 1 month to some others. Is that not even staggering, Tess? What are they saying again?
Okay, well, let's leave that. It looks as if it has really gotten on your nerves, especially as they plan to do that. But let's come now to the living wage, and not just look at the living wage, but also look at the galloping inflation in the land. Things keep skyrocketing. You made pronouncement of how much a bag of cement is. As it stands yesterday, is 9,500 naira, and a bag of rice came up from last week 70,000 to 77,000 as of yesterday when we took our survey. But my question now is, what do you feel is the reason for the present hardship that many Nigerians, not just Nigerian workers, but many Nigerians are presently going through at the moment?
Okay, it's simple. First of all, for me, my take on the causes of this present hardship are not perfect.
Okay.
Of our dependence on food oil export, that the revenue is not really coming because of mortgage our currency because of huge loans taken by previous government.
Okay.
Most of the benefit we are supposed to get from sales of crude oil is being used to service this loan. So it's not having its desired effect on our economy. That's one.
Okay.
You have the issue of non-diversification of our economy.
Okay.
That's another aspect to it. You have the issue of corruption. You have the issue of insecurity too.
Yes.
These are all issues that is causing the current decay in infrastructure. There are roads. Those are the issues that are causing the current downturn we're experiencing, and most especially the floating of the naira. Because when you are floating your currency as a nation, you must be a producing nation.
Yeah.
Because the essence of floating your currency is to attract foreign patronage. But now you are not producing, you are depending on foreign products, you are floating your currency, which now weakens your purchasing power more. My brother, I think they should go back and look at the book so I know what the theory behind some of these economic policies is all about and implement things. Just imagine recently, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was alleged that the CBN governor was alluding to the fact that the exchange rate is because Nigerians are going abroad for study.
Yes.
And for medical.
Yeah.
Is that not an indictment on the system? Let's assume he was correct. What stops us from putting our infrastructure right with regard to education and health facilities to stop that? If he feels that's the problem, why can't they now direct huge investment into the education sector and also in healthcare to further the capital flights with regard to foreign education and healthcare services? If he feels that's the correct thing to do. So the truth is this. Not until our leaders realize that what is studied in a book needs to be practicalized, not just coming and giving press conference. Not until they realize that and start doing it, we'll still remain where we are. But unfortunately, we now find ourselves as a nation that the previous government will always be better than the current one. So are we making progress as a nation? Because now we keep saying this one, the one that was there before is better than this one. That's what, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
Well, anyway, thank you so much, Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume. But I'll plead with you to hold on a bit. We need to go on a break now. And when we come back, we'll continue our discussion centered on the present hardship. And we might now be looking at what the living wage of workers should be, looking at the present situation of things. So we'll just plead with you, hold on, let's go on a short commercial so at least we can have a living wage for ourselves. And we'll come back and have more discussion right here on Quest Today.